Bulgaria. Welcome to Bulgaria. My name is Dimitar Sasselov. Dimitar Sasselov zvuči na Bulgarski. In Bulgarian it sounds a little bit different. But I was born and grew up in Bulgaria, but I work at Harvard. I've been there for many, many years, more than 30 now. And it's great to welcome you all back here. Well, for me back here, for many of you for the first time in my home country. It's a great time of the year. The weather is cooperating too, so I hope you'll have time to go and explore if it's your first time. And if it's not your first time, just go back to the place you loved before. Back to work. We're here for a conference, and it's actually a technical conference. We'll have a good time as well, I'm sure. I want to welcome you here, not just from me personally, and not at all from me just personally, but on behalf of the Science Advisory Committee for this conference, and tell you a couple of things about why we are doing this conference and what we hope to accomplish today and in the next 5 days. There are times in history of science when a new kind of paradigm or thinking or way of thinking about the world comes about, and the ideas, as we like to say, in the air. So a lot of people sense that there is something new emerging, and this is the feeling we've had for the past few years, especially today, about the field that is represented in this conference, Life in the Universe. And it is certainly not the first and the only conference on that general topic. In fact, I can think of at least 2 just in the last 3 months that happened all around the world, most recently in Zurich, and before that in the States, and then in Munich and other places. But this one is unique. This one is unique for 2 reasons at least. The first reason starts with the trivial statement that this new emerging field, which involves origins of life research and astrobiology and the search for life beyond Earth, is a multidisciplinary field. This is a trivial statement, everybody understands it. But what we're trying to do here is be one step beyond that. We want to be transdisciplinary. And you probably already felt that, because there are a lot of colleagues and experts in the audience and among you that you've never met before. So this is not one of those conferences in which you know everybody else and you're getting together to get an update of what is happening in the field. First of all, there is no clear delineation of a field to begin with. And second, it is so interdisciplinary that we decided to force you to sit next to people who are really beyond your zone of comfort in terms of scientific expertise. And this is on purpose. So basically, what we are doing in practical terms, as you will see by looking at the agenda, is the speakers allotted half an hour, but only 20 minutes to speak. So 20 minutes for the speakers. And then there are 10 minutes for questions and answers. That is not typical for most conferences and workshops. Typically we give 20 minutes plus 5. What happens in those 5 minutes typically, apart from the speaker over extending their time, which will strictly forbid here, is that there are a couple of questions, usually by other experts, figuring or clarifying some of the technical details. So one expert's talking to the other. This is very valuable, that's why we go to conferences, but not today and not in this conference. In this conference, we want to have also time for what I call naive questions. And most of you might think of stupid questions. Of course, as teachers, we always say there is no such thing as a stupid question, and I strongly believe that is true. There is no such thing as a stupid question. But I know that especially for the younger people in the audience here, and I see a lot of them, thankfully, asking naive questions is like seriously outside of their comfort zone. But that's why we have 10 minutes. I hope that there will be a moment of pause when nobody is asking a question, and instead of saying, okay, we have to move to the next speaker, we'll actually wait until some of you get the courage to ask that naive question. There are two reasons why the naive questions are very important for our conference. Number one is because I can guarantee you that there is not a single one of us here in the audience who is an expert across all of the fields that are represented. None of us. So we all equal in that sense. Each one of us has a weakness and will not understand certain things. So if you have a naive or stupid question to ask, you can be assured that there are at least 10 other people who have exactly the same issue and hope that somebody asks the question. But more importantly, there is a second reason. In a field which is emerging like this, naive questions often give a pause to the speaker and to the other experts in the room, and they rethink what they knew or thought about this topic. And quite often these naive questions are the germination of breakthroughs. So don't underestimate the power of these stupid questions. So the second reason this is a unique conference is, of course, because it's in Bulgaria. A very small country, but with a very vibrant community of scientists, especially young generation of scientists. And also at the crossroads of Eastern Europe, and especially Southern Eastern Europe. So in a field like this, which is emerging, there is a very important role for young starting scientists. Partly because there are a lot of possible breakthroughs which do not require huge funding, and partly because there are a lot of need for young, fresh ideas to solve some of the bottlenecks and problems that are still in the field. So please use the opportunity to get involved, all of you, on both sides. The senior people will find some very talented people to hire maybe in the future, and the young people should look for opportunities to get involved. So that is what we wanted to actually accomplish with this conference. We hope that you have a great time and ask a lot of naive questions. And we leave here with some, exciting thoughts and projects for the future. And speaking about exciting projects for the future, I will be remiss to not say that the reason we're here because of the really persistent and visionary efforts of essentially one person, which is my colleague, also Bulgarian, Krastan Blagoev, but from Johns Hopkins University, like me, in the States. And on top of that, Krastan has the second hat, very important one, that he's a program officer for a very important program in the National Science Foundation in the United States, right here, NSF. Which is supporting this kind of efforts, and in fact is supporting in a big way this very conference. More importantly, Krastan developed the program Physics of Living Systems and made it what it is today. And by the name of it, Physics of Living Systems, you can see that he meant something a lot more expansive than simply calling it biophysics, which is typically how we refer in a narrow way to that. And in that way, he sees the opportunity to involve a much broader community into solving those unusual problems. And as such, I want to introduce him here and ask him to say a few words. Krastan, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. I've been also working and doing research in the United States for more than 30 years, like Dimitar. I think we left the same year, 1990, and I'm very happy that now in the last few years I've been able to support this international cooperation in this exciting area of interdisciplinary research. As Dimitar said, about 15 years ago I started working at the NSF, and the idea was to create a new broad program based on the existing biological physics program that will involve all sorts of life, artificial life, and extraterrestrial life, life at extreme conditions, and so forth. And so this conference actually, I could say, one of the fruits of this 15-year effort. And I was not going to talk today, because I don't think that I get much to say about the topics of the conference. But this year is a very important year for us, because after 3 years of the effort at the National Academy of Sciences in the United States, finally this year, a decadal survey of the field of biological physics and physics of living systems was published. And you can read, I'm not going to read what it says here, but Bill Bialek gave a very nice presentation. He was the chair of the decadal survey. It was done all over the world. And for the first time in 50 years, a new field of physics was declared by the National Academy of Sciences. This is extremely exciting. And this is the field of biological physics and physics of living systems. A field much broader than biophysics, as Dimitar said, and not only broader, but also trying to answer different questions from just using physics to understand biological function. This is the field where physicists and chemists and engineers and computer scientists and biologists work together to try to understand the basic principle, the fundamental principle behind life. And I thank you so much for coming here, and I wish you're going to have a wonderful conference, and thank you so much for coming here. I would like to introduce Professor Denkov from Sofia University, who is also representing the Bulgarian government, to say a few words. I've known him for also more than 30 years. It's been a long time. And thank you very much, Professor Denkov.
Good morning from me. I must say that I should be politically correct. I'm not representative of the Bulgarian government because I'm not authorized for that. Instead, I really enjoy to be here as a professor from Sofia University and to say a few words why this conference is so important for us in Bulgaria. So first, I want to thank the organizers. Second, I want to thank to all the foreign scientists that decided to travel to Bulgaria. I know all of you have very busy schedules. But believe me, for us, this is very important event for 3 reasons. First of all, as it was mentioned already, in Bulgaria there is a brilliant science in many groups. But they are rather scattered for many reasons. I don't want to discuss them. So having world-class meetings like that is an excellent opportunity to gather even us together and to start to talk about new scientific programs, topics, that otherwise we don't find the time to meet together. Just as an example, I sit down on a table with young colleagues from the Faculty of Biology that I have never met before. Sorry about that. So thank you for gathering us together. Second point, science is about the exchange of ideas. And we are very busy in these days, not only with science. I had another meeting a few days ago, and the leading scientists in my area in Bulgaria were complaining that 80% of their time now is going to public procurement procedures because the administration is overwhelming in these days. So thank you for allowing us to sit down together and talk about real world-class science. And the third thing, we have excellent network of Bulgarian scientists everywhere, and we see them here. And it's an excellent way not only to recover the network of scientists that we have in Bulgaria, but also to create a new network with the young generation. And I have invited some of my students to be here because the future depends on these young scientists, not so much on us. So thank you very much again, and I'm sure I'll enjoy this meeting in the next few days. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, picking up on the topic of why is an American National Science Foundation funding conference in Bulgaria, for all the reasons I explained, this makes sense, and in fact makes a great sense, and it's great that there are visionary people who see the reason to engage town from wherever town is. And Professor Denkov already mentioned that, but it's a good way to introduce our next welcoming speaker. That's Mr. Sullivan from the American Embassy here, from the US State Department. He's the senior economic officer in the embassy and has been in Bulgaria now for 2 years, so he's traveled across the country and knows even some Bulgarian now. Mr. Sullivan, please.
Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing today? It's my honor, it's a delight to welcome you here on behalf of the United States government, on behalf of the U.S. Embassy in Sofia. In some cases, obviously, it's a welcome back. We see Dr. Blagoev, Dr. Sasselov, and see Bulgarian Americans coming back to Bulgaria, reconnecting and burdening those ties, and that's diplomacy. That's what we do at the embassy, and to have others in the United States government, other representatives of the science community doing that as well is great. That's diplomacy, and that's why together we're stronger together as friends, partners, and allies. So thank you for your efforts there. It looks like you have a tremendous week here in Bulgaria. Fortunately, the organizers also offered you a little bit of downtime to travel. You get to see what is a really beautiful country. And I think for those of you for whom this is the first time here, it probably won't be the last time here, because you're going to really see some beautiful things. So originally, I'd asked the organizers if I could just take about 2 to 3 hours or so. I just wanted to present some of my thoughts. When I'm not practicing the art of diplomacy, I have a hobby, and I like to concentrate a little bit on a little thing. It's experimental and theoretical investigation of ACN production in the Haitian Earth atmosphere. So, again, something I just dabble in. Unfortunately, when I got here, and to my great dismay, I see one of my rivals, Dr. Pierce, is planning to talk to you later on today. And so I'm sure you'll have questions after Dr. Pierce's presentation, and so please feel free to come to me after that. But I don't want to steal his thunder. I'm a Johns Hopkins graduate. I have my master's from Johns Hopkins. I don't want to do that to a fellow Blue Jay. So please listen to him, and I'll save that for a later opportunity. So instead, I just wanted to talk about, just real briefly, what does the State Department have to do with these dynamics? And basically, it's elementary diplomacy. None of these missions can happen without cooperation, right? Even NASA, the leading institute in the world in space exploration, they need partners. And so that's what we help with. We help facilitate those dialogues. We come with our very naive questions, but we put the smart people, you all, together and say, hey, this is what we're doing, and please, let's work together to make this happen. So just really briefly, all examples that you are well aware of, but the Galileo mission to Jupiter at the end of the Cold War, that happened with a propulsion system from West Germany. And so again, partnership, coming together, showing the strength of the West. Then you fast forward about 10 years, you have the Cassini-Huygens mission to Saturn. And that happened with an atmospheric probe by the European Space Agency, ESA. I also was looking at the archives. The ESA helped save that mission. They wrote a letter to then Vice President Gore and said, hey, we hear your Congress is threatening to cut the mission, and this would be bad, both for our relationship, the United States and Europe, and just bad for the future of the species and our exploration in answering these questions. And so that went on to great success. More recently, we saw the NASA Perseverance rover landing safely on Mars in February 2021. And they had instruments from France, Norway, and Spain. And then also the continuation of that effort, which is pretty exciting, NASA is partnering with the European Space Agency and what should be the first ever return of Martian soil to Earth. So the dynamic's a little weird. It sounds like there's some sort of interstellar handoff or whatnot, but pretty cool effort there. And then lastly, we see with the James Webb Space Telescope, again, a collaboration with NASA, European Space Agency, and our friends to the north, the Canadian Space Agency, and an additional 13 countries that involved in building the telescope. And so these are the questions about unlocking the mysteries of the early universe, and also looking at other planets and looking at targets of where could we see signs of life, and what else do we want to explore. So very exciting stuff. So that's our job. So I encourage you today, you are the smart ones, the brainiacs, right? Talk amongst yourselves, but then if you need help connecting, and if you need help making those connections and coming together to be stronger, then that's where we come in. So please consider us a resource. So enjoy your week, have a great conference, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's get on with the work then. We are starting with our first session today and for this conference, and we have a session chair that needs no introduction, Professor Angel Garcia from NSF, who will lead us into the exploration of exoplanets and space and beyond. That's how we start, from the big picture. And again, speakers, you have 20 minutes, 10 minutes for questions and answers. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. This is the first scientific session of the Congress. Like Dimitar said, this is a transdisciplinary. So I think I'm the first example. I'm a biophysicist into biological physics, and I will be sharing the session on exoplanets. So if you expect, like the previous speaker, a very deep and thorough description of what exoplanets and why they're relevant, just ask me. And I will provide a very good answer. So without any further ado, actually, my name is Angel Garcia. If you look at the program, it says Herbie Levine. Herbie Levine must be in an airplane on his way here. He'll be here this afternoon, and he will chair the session on bio, which probably I will understand something about.